About 4 years ago, I built some support posts for my tarp whenever I put it over my camper, whether it's a pop-up camper, whether it's a tent, whether it's an awning just for a picnic table. There's always a time when there weren't enough trees around. This here is a solution for you, and it's going to help you. Coming right up. Some of the parks these days don't really want you tying things to trees. Now, if you're real careful about it, it works okay. If you wrap your rope around your tree, nice and neat, you take it off, you don't disturb the bark. I think it's okay, but a lot of parks these days don't want you doing that at all. Hey, I do appreciate you coming to the channel. Straightforward process, how these posts go together. They work really well, especially when you put a tarp over your camper, and you don't really want the tarp down, hanging down obviously by the front door, so it's always nice to be able to take that almost like an awning, reach it out, put your one post on one side, one on the other, and they're fully adjustable, 1.25" PVC type 1. That is the size of my outer pipe, and then the pipe on the inside is going to be just a little bit thinner than that. Total length of the pipe, you can see that I've got a connector piece on the bottom. That's not really the technical term. I'm sure the plumbers and the pipe fitters out there know exactly what this is called, because it actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 areas that connect. Now, I did glue this bottom piece on, but the legs, you do not want to glue the legs on, because if you glue them on, it's going to be a lot harder to transport this system from campsite back home and back and forth. The legs are made out of the same 1.25" PVC. Now, I've got on these legs right here, I've got, it looks to me, about 11.5. And I would imagine I did 11.25 or 11.5 rather than a full 12. When I take my pieces and I cut them all out, if you go a full 12, when you get to the end of your pipe, your last piece isn't going to be a foot long, it's going to be a little bit less. Anytime you want to cut something like this, you always cut it a little bit less. Plenty, if you got an 8-foot piece laying there, you'll get 8 11.5" pieces. Clear as mud, I know. So I cut these at 11.5. Then I just took your standard cap and put a cap on the end of it. That's important so dirt, sand, things like that don't get in there. By the time the cap goes on there, it makes a full 12.25 inches on that. You do not want to glue these inside the base. You just want to take them like this, and just what I do is I just rotate them a little bit, not much. Good enough, good to go right there. Those will hold up just fine like that. And then when it's time to go, time to load everything up and take it back home, you just rotate them back out and they pop back out. If you put these on and you pop that with a hammer just a little bit, they're going to be very difficult to come back off. You could put maybe some WD-40 or something on there, but I don't have a trouble with it. But if you don't have a lot of strength in your hands, you may want to do something like that to make it easier for it to come in and out. Your base is all set up, ready to go, and it works pretty good. You'll find sometimes it all depends on which way the wind's blowing, and let's say the wind was blowing in the direction from you to me, I might put them like this, or sometimes I'll put it straight out. It all depends. You'll get a good feel. Once you work with them, you'll get a good feel what is the best way for these to stand, because I carry a bag with me just like this right here. It's got some extra rope and stuff in it, but that little bag right there works pretty good, and I'll just pop them off, store them in there, I always like to be real organized. You'll notice that in some of the posts that I make, because to me there's nothing worse than getting to a campsite. Because when you get there, you're there to have fun. You're not there to struggle with how to set your camper up, how to put your tarp up, all that kind of stuff. So if you practice at home, and that's what I do, I get all my systems down pat at home before I actually get there. And another good reason to practice, if you're like me, you think you're going to get there right before dark, and you pull in and the sun's already set and it's gotten dark on you. Now it gets a little bit more difficult to set your camp up, but you can do it, you know, if you've got some lights and stuff. I actually have some really nice LED lights that I have mounted on my 2004 Pontiac Montana. There's a video on that on my channel on how to put these security lights off. They're pretty nice. They're motion detection lights, but when you pull up at night, you can pop them on. It's got a remote control. You can get them to stay on. They're pretty dang nice. They light the whole camp up. I highly recommend them. But this is what the finished product looks like on top. I always like my guidelines to go ahead and be on there. I don't want to have to grab guidelines and try to figure out which ones to put. I got a pretty good length of rope here that I use. If I needed more, I could add to it, but this here works pretty good. Let's measure the total length from top to bottom. 63 inches from top to bottom. That 63 inches, it did include the bottom base. Main support pipe on here is not 63 inches long, because right here at the bottom, that's probably 3 inches. So that pipe ends, so this pipe right here ends probably right in here. So you have 3 more inches for this coupling right here. Keep that in mind as you start to put them together. Of course, you could build these any size you want. It doesn't matter. This is just a size that works out really good for me. So let's take this line apart here. This is a pretty good system. I belong to a group, and it's Pop-Up Camper Group Facebook page, and I really like it. It's got a lot of great people on it and a lot of good ideas. And I posted something just yesterday, day before. I got a lot of interest on these pipes. People were asking me about these support posts. And so I just decided to go ahead. I've been meaning to kind of put a video together for a long time, so I just decided to go ahead and put this video together. When I kind of think about it, anytime that I've used these at a campground, I do get people come up and comment on them. My guidelines, that's ready to go. So whenever I get there, my legs are in place. These are all in place. I tie down. I don't have to worry about scrambling looking for rope to tie down. There's a pipe slid on the inside of this pipe right here. What I did was I drilled a series of holes through this inside pipe, and just one hole drilled on the outside of the pipe. And I use a little clevis hook like this. You know, you can get these at any of your hardware store. Anything that I've got this support post built out of, you can buy at Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's. If you're in Munising, Michigan, you can go to the Ace Hardware store downtown, my favorite hardware store in the world. This inside pipe slides out. Let me get back just a little bit. This inside pipe will slide out. It's got a series of holes drilled in it, back and forth. I think I measured it goes from like 5 feet to about 8 feet. So that's where your adjustability comes in. Let me measure the distance between each one is 5 inches. Every 5 inches I drilled a hole in it. Starting at the top, not the very top, because that wouldn't make any sense to have one at the very top. Pop your pin out. You raise it up to whatever height works best for you. You go ahead and line the hose back up again. Put your pin in and lock it in. It is ready to go. Now, this pipe is 1 inch. So the outside pipe is 1.25 inches. The inside pipe is 1 inch. 1 inch PVC Schedule 40. When you drill these holes through here, you've got to be very careful, and you got to make sure you drill them straight and they're all in the same plane all the way up and down. If the drill goes through at an angle, and whenever you slide it in your other support post, nothing is going to line up for you. It's going to give you a headache. Go ahead and build one first, make sure it works good, and then just duplicate the process. But when you go to the hardware store and you pick out your pin, go ahead and get a drill bit that's just a little bit larger. Don't get the drill bit the same size as the pin. It's going to be way too hard to put together. I usually carry these on top of the rack system that I have on my vehicles, but I want it to be as small as possible when I'm transporting it. If you're going to go somewhere where you camp in the sand, be careful. You don't want to get a bunch of sand in here and stuff and go to grind those in. The most important thing, whenever you put the legs on, that make sure that that's clean and you don't use the hammer to tap it on, because if you do, you're never going to get them off. And of course, if you have any questions about these, you can always write them in the comments, and on the YouTube channel is where the video will be posted. Take a look at the video, and then if you have any comments, any ideas, any improvements, just put them in the comments. I got me a cap, so that would be a 1-inch cap that went on top of the 1-inch pipe, and I did glue it on. Anytime I build something for camping or I'm going to use on the outside, I always make sure that they're stainless steel. They cost a few pennies more, but it's well worth it to buy stainless steel components. Okay, let me take the guide. The guideline is just basically, it just goes over the top like that. It has a head on the inside. I took a nut that has the plastic inside it. It's kind of like a non-slip nut. So my bolt went through, I put my washer on, the nut on, screwed it down, and got everything nice and tight. A little piece of clear tubing, and I cut it to size and I slipped it over the top. And then I came up with a stainless steel wing nut. All tarps will have eyelets. Take this wing nut off, put your eyelet over the top, and it'll fit on there real nice, and the threads will not mess up the eyelet, and the eyelet will not mess up the threads with the tubing on there. Flip the eyelet over it, put the guideline on top of the tarp to hold it down, and then I screw this down. I think the nice thing about having like a pop-up camper is you have a really nice shelter. You can really bug out if you needed to, and the more things that you get worked out, the better you're going to be. I actually have an old windsurfing bag right here. So these work for campers, these work for tents, picnic tables. Buy you a bag like this. I keep extra rope inside it. All your pieces fit right inside there like that. I did a video about a bug out machine, and I used a couple of these support posts with it, but I got to thinking, boy, there's one thing I don't like is how bright white they are. So in a case like that, I just took a little bit of spray paint. I got some black, green, and brown, and just sprayed them. So I'll probably end up going in and camo spraying every one of them. They just blend in a lot better. And even the guidelines that I have on them, I actually darkened them up a little bit so they're not so reflective and so bright. If you want to check out that video on the bug out machine, that's at LAF Space Film Fest. That's capital LAF Space Film Fest. If you would hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Hammer it down. That helps me to put videos like this out, so show them to you so you can pass them on to your friends and family. Thank you for coming to the channel. And you have a good day.